Shutter speed, aperture, ISO. Exploring the exposure triangle. Witness the brilliance of prime photography.
What is shutter speed? Shutter speed, also known as exposure time, is the amount of time the shutter opens to expose the camera sensor to light. Shutter speed is measured in seconds or fractions of a second. A fast shutter speed, for example 1/200th of a second, can actually freeze motion in some cases. Keep in mind, a fast shutter speed may not give you the amount of light that is required for you to have an ideally exposed image. A longer shutter speed, say for 1 second or even more, can result in a very bright image, but it can also introduce something called motion blur. The shutter speed is not the only contributing factor to the ideal exposure for your image. Something that also needs to be taken into account is aperture. What is aperture? Aperture is the opening of a camera lens. Some lenses have a variable aperture, meaning they can open wide and they can close really, really small. The smaller the closure is, the less light gets in. The wider it is, of course, more light is going to get in. There's something very strange about aperture though. It's going to take some getting used to. The smaller the number in the f-stop is the wider the lens actually is. The larger the number, the smaller the opening in the lens is. Aperture is measured in f-stops. Some lenses have an f-stop as small as f22 to as wide as f1.8. Now you might notice something strange there. How come it could be as small as f22 but as large as 1.8? But that is because it is measured in a very strange sort of backwards way and will take some getting used to. But what is important to note right now is a lens with an opening as wide as f1.8 will let a lot of light in the lens, while f22 will be very small and will let a lot less light pass through. Another very important contributing factor to the ideal exposure for your images is the ISO. ISO is often referred to as the light sensitivity level. Sometimes that image might be too dark. You can increase your ISO to get some more brightness in the image. But it's important that you keep the ISO as low as possible. That way, you will be able to retain the good quality in the image. By raising the ISO too high, you can start to introduce something called grain, which is not often very desired, but more on that in another video. And there they are, the 3 important elements that make up the exposure triangle. Change these settings to get the ideal exposure for your image.